haven't been many positives, have there, this season? Let's be honest. It's been a pretty drab period for the club, and not easy. And I feel like at the moment, the way the general consensus around the club is at the moment, the general feeling is pretty low. I think everyone's a bit drained of the season and very much looking forward to seeing the back of it. So when you get some good news, it just gives you a little bit of a boost, a bit of a lift that you need. And I feel like we've got that today in terms of the future of Freddie Potts. So Freddie Potts, as we know, is on loan at the moment. He's with Portsmouth. He was at Wickham last season. He got player of the season there. He was outstanding for them. And he's been excellent for Portsmouth as well again this season in the Championship. And very highly rated, isn't he? Potts is someone that the club really highly admire and want to get involved in the first team as soon as possible. I actually get the feeling that he's going to get a real good opportunity at the end of this season, this summer, working under Graham Potter, and a chance to impress. And there is I feel a growing feeling that Potts will be able to step in and possibly even sort of push for a first team opportunity at the club. And that's been further enhanced now by the fact that he's now signed a new long-term deal. Don't know much of the details at the moment. Just put the news out this evening. It's just come out from ex-WHU employee, so I've just heard it recently, so I don't know a lot about it. All I know is that he has now penned a long-term deal with West Ham, which is excellent. I'm really liking this shift that we're seeing at West Ham now and how we're handling our academy players. That's down to Mark Noble. We know that he has now got a firm grip on this and making sure that we don't keep leaving these deals to run. I mean, how many players over the last few years have we seen that we've tried to keep and not been able to because we've just sat on their deals for far too long? Lewis Orford was obviously the most recent where we sort of had to sort of scramble to get it sorted, but we did. So I'm really, really pleased. Obviously, we're seeing this now with other players that are committing their long-term futures, which has been excellent. But Freddie Potts is a big one. That's a big signing for West Ham. Let's get it right. I feel like West Ham, this could be a player that in the not too distant future, we'll be saying he's a key player at this club, much like Ollie Scholes is, much like you consider him. It wasn't too long ago. Scholes was sort of on the fringes in the academy. Now you're considering more of a first team player. I do feel Potts is not far behind that, and others as well. So really pleased that this is fantastic news. It really is, and I think it's excellent. As I say, I'm going to provide a bit more detail on that when I find out a bit more and talk about it a bit more. But yeah, all confirmed, and he's put pen to paper, so that's excellent. So that will come. There's a couple of videos. I want to do a separate video on Lucas Paquetá and the situation there. So this week, as it is at the moment, he is fighting to clear his name. I think last week the trial started with the FA. The FA presented their charges. That's now come out. I'm going to talk about that in a bit more detail. But I've got to say that following what we've been through with Paquetá, in terms of the news of it and how long it's been going on for, and the sort of the scale of it all, the fact they've got hearings out in Brazil, Spain, the FA, of course, here they're conducting their own investigation, lifetime ban. We kept hearing about. I'm a little bit surprised by the evidence that their so-called evidence that they've got, which they basically haven't got any. It's pretty poor. I'm far more optimistic now for Lucas Paquetá than I've ever been. I'm not suggesting that I feel like, he's going to get found innocent here. But my word, I mean, I would say that from what we know at the moment, in terms of what the FA have got, it doesn't feel very strong at all. And the fact now David Moyes is coming forward as a witness to give key evidence in this to support Lucas Paquetá. Do you know what? It's certainly not. Beforehand, I thought he was done and dusted. I thought he's in big trouble here, and we're going to he's going to really struggle to clear his name. I'm not so convinced about that now. I don't think that the case that the FA have presented is that strong. That's just my general feelings on it. But as I say, I'll do a separate video on that and talk about that in a bit more detail later on this week. Ideally tomorrow, probably that'll be the case. So we're going to see that. But this week he is clearing his name. This is his week to sort of present his side of the story. So hopefully we get some good news out of that. My word, it would be such a boost, wouldn't it? I mean, considering the fact where it's been and how damaging the whole affair has been, not just on Paquetá but West Ham as well. A player that we know can be so influential. You can clearly see how much this is affecting him. So, yeah, let's wait and see how that one pans out. But certainly, from my point of view, I feel a lot more optimistic. I'm actually quite shocked, really, by how bad the FA have. What they're hanging all these charges on. It seems, very, very odd. But there is some bad news today. There always will be. There always be a bit of bad news at West Ham. You know what I mean? You're never going to get good news all round. It's bad news, and very bad news in terms of Crysencio Summerville, who has now been ruled out for the rest of the season. I don't understand what's going on with this bloody injury. I've got to be honest. I've talked about this in previous video. West Ham and these mystery illnesses, injuries. I can't get my head around it. I just can't. I can't believe how often this happens to this football club, that we get players in, they get these injuries, and they're, it's only a couple of weeks, only a little strain, and it just goes on and on and on. And before you know it, you're just left scratching your head thinking, when is this ever going to end? And that's where we are with Somerville. I mean, hamstring strain, only going to be a short-term injury. I mean, we're talking back in January now that happened, and we're now end of March. And and now he's not going to be he won't be available for the rest of this season. It's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. He's been out for this long, but I've got a bit of criticism on this, because I said about last time, I'm surprised that the player is able to force the fact that I'm not having an operation, I'm doing this. And I do understand it. People will say, well, hang on, it's well within his rights. But my feeling, what my argument was, well, surely, but if the football club are saying, well, look, this is the injury, this is what you need to get better, this is what the doctor's orders are, you're a football player for West Ham, this is what we need you to do. There's clearly some frustration, I think, from West Ham. The tone from the update from the source at West Ham doesn't sound positive in any way. In fact, it gives the impression of anger towards Somerville. Like, well, what are we supposed to do? We don't know, do we? It's a bit of an attitude I can feel in it, and a frustration from the football club. And I get it as well, because if, at the end of the day, we need him back, we want him playing, and then you're going against the advice of doctors. It's hard, very, very difficult. But having said that, I do feel for the player as well, because I do feel like this is something that I don't like to hear. And I can't imagine he's finding this pleasant, having the club criticising him sort of in a public manner, in a way. It's kind of, this news is coming out. But it is what it is, isn't it? It's not a good scenario. It's frustrating, because he was the one player that when we first saw him, obviously Graham Potter's first game, I thought, God, he's going to thrive under Potter. Potter's going to love having Somerville available. And it just clicked. You could watch it all happening. And he only played, didn't he, the first half? He looked great against Aston Villa in that FA Cup game. And we've obviously not seen him since. And it's so frustrating. And every time we keep getting like an inkling that he's getting closer to returning, he gets pulled away again. So really, really disappointed with that, and frustrated. I don't really see an end in sight for this at the moment. Every time I feel like we're getting an inkling that it's always getting a bit closer, or it actually might be available this weekend, it seems to get pulled away fast. And it's just... it's going to keep happening like that, I feel, with Somerville. Until I don't understand the extent of the injury at the moment. I don't understand how we can be in a situation where the club are so confident or so determined the fact that he needs to have this operation, and the player is so adamant that he doesn't. It's an awkward one. It really is. And it's one that's incredibly frustrating, considering that we need this lift before the end of the season. All right, it's not critical. We're not going down. We're not fighting for anything in particular, but we want to finish the season strongly. We certainly want to bloody finish above Spurs, and we need players back. Evan Ferguson's turning out to be a disastrous loan, let's be honest. I know he scored for Ireland last night, which I'm hoping helps us out and gets his confidence levels up, and we might start seeing him play. But let's be honest, his loan's been a bag of absolute shite so far. Obviously, we've got Nicholas Fulgood coming back, which is a positive. But again, I didn't want to be risking him. I don't want him really playing. I'd rather see him sold in the summer, to be honest. And now this doesn't, and this has been added to it. Another big key player that we want to see do well, want to see him playing under Potter, is now not available. It's really annoying, and I don't see any. There's no end in sight. There's no determination of when this is going to come to a conclusion, when he's going to be back, because the club don't bloody know. So yeah, that's where we are. That's where we are with that. But let's try and lead on the positive news in this video, which is Freddie Potts. I mean, him committing his future to West Ham long term is fantastic news. It really is. It's such a shift from West Ham's usual way we do things, and I'm thrilled to see it. That we've got our young academy lads that are usually so reluctant to sign, because they get, obviously, the agents in the ear. Go on, you can go and play there. You can earn a bit more money there, and we've always struggled, and we always leave their deals right to the last minute to try and then go back in. and we tend to find ourselves get a bit unstuck when we do that. And now we're not. We're on the front foot. We're getting these deals done. We're keeping our players here. I'm just really pleased, and I'm really intrigued to see how Potts gets on in the summer under Graham Potter, obviously with our pre-season tour, which will be in America. We've obviously got some other pre-season games as well, but no, it's going to be interesting. So yeah, good news there. Somerville not so good, and Paquetá, who bloody knows, but hoping with that poorly thought out case in terms of what the FA put forward, my confidence levels are rising a little bit. But as I say, I'll talk about that in another video as the week goes on. Until then, come on, your minds.